Candy thought that she could get rid of me, but I'm back. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Raphael and I am here to review season 16, episode 12 of The Real Housewives with no food for their guests at their event of Atlanta. So we start the episode off at Shamia's big ass house, but before that, I know I haven't reviewed the last couple of episodes this season and I'll explain why in a minute. But there was something that I saw that I wanted to address because I just couldn't believe that people would just lie so openly like this, and it really did bother me. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to address it on here, but we have to talk about it one way or another, right? And I promised myself I wouldn't get upset about this, but you know, about 2 episodes ago, you know, when the whole situation of Porsha allegedly saying at the pool that she would sleep with Angela's husband just to get back at her, you know, that whole conversation, Cynthia, she brought that conversation back to Porsha. She sat down with her and she was just like, Porsha, allegedly you said X, Y, and Z. What did Porsha say?
What? Wait a minute, Cynthia. Hold on, 50 Cent. I never said that. I would never sleep with somebody else's husband.
Now, as soon as I heard that, you know, my alerts started going off like, Porsha, you are 100% lying, you are 100% lying, you are 100% lying. In the words of Candy, the lies, I may be smart. Oh, you know, like, Porsha, you act like it as if we haven't gotten you on footage. You know, from what, 2 seasons ago when you were in the pool, you know, doing whatever with Fallon and Simon, he was off to the side just, you know, planning his whole mission and rescue mission, you know, to get with you and leave Fallon. You act like we don't have it on footage. Like, you know, it's okay if you were just to come out and just be honest for once. Like, what, we're on the 12th episode and you still haven't even addressed anything? You know, if you were just to come out and say, you know what? Yes, I did take this woman's husband by mistake. It did take 2 to tango, you know, and I'll never do it again. But here you are again, causing more damage to your reputation. Like, you came back after all this time just to ruin your image even more. And it's such a shame because you're so likable, but... And I've said it before, you know, I'm pretty sure that we will all forgive Porsha, you know, because we've all messed around with somebody who's been married or in a relationship before, right? And, you know, honestly, the more I think about it, that one song that Chloe Bailey, that she put out at the very beginning of one of her songs, I feel like that was a dig at Porsha when she says, do you ever wonder, like, who's fucking your man? I don't know, I feel like that was directed to Porsha. Like, Chloe, are you trying to tell us something here? Because, I don't know, Porsha should have been on the remix of that song, but I don't know. But that's all I wanted to address back to the episode. So we see Waffles. She comes on over, her and Shamia, they're in the backyard. They start opening champagne and just spilling it all over the place. I'm like, what are you two doing? You know, that's champagne, but you know, they have money to just buy all of it, right? So they sit down, Kelly, she tells her, Shamia, Andy, Bravo, they actually called me this morning and they said that we have to take a cast trip because this season is flopping without Kenya Moore. After she left, the ratings just, you know, and supposedly Phaedra, she's coming back and she's getting a peach for no reason. So now we have to go on a cast trip. I really can't afford too much right now because I'm going through a divorce. So do you want to host it with me since you have the most money? You know, we could say that we're hosting it, but really it's coming out of your pocket. What do you say? Shamia, she was just like, yeah, no, of course. So then Kelly, she was just like, okay, do you want to guess where we're going? It's somewhere in the Caribbean, right? And then Shamia starts listing all these random places for like about 45 minutes. She sounded like DMX in that one song, you know, when he was just listing off names just for no reason. You know, Shamia was just like, is it Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Brazil, Alicia, Sabrina, Latrice, Peaches, Karen, Samantha, Alicia? I'm like, Kelly, please just tell her where you're going already. Like, she's just guessing wrong, right? So eventually she was just like, Shamia, you know, wrong answer. We're going to Grenada. What is it? Grenada. I don't think I've ever heard of that place, but they're going to Grenada and they want to give back to the people of Grenada, right? Okay, for a good cause, right? Or at least Shamia does, because Shamia, she's the one with the cha-ching. You know, Kelly, she's going through some financial issues right now with her divorce. And that's the next thing that she starts venting about. She starts telling Shamia, you know, this whole divorce is taking a lot out of me. I believe that I'm like already have to pay, I think $150,000. That is a lot. You know, and I can only imagine how many waffles she has to flip just to pay that off. But I'm pretty sure she'll be fine in the end, Kelly. And speaking of being a home wrecker, we see Porsha and her mom, they meet up with Candace's husband from Potomac, Chris. He's the realtor. He's showing them around this big house. The house looks really nice, Porsha. Now that, Simon kicked her out of her house, she needs to find her own place to live. So they're going around, they sit down. Porsha, she starts reminiscing on how she used to be in her first marriage to Cordell. She was a whole different person. Cordell was just very controlling of everything that Porsha said and did. We all remember her little speech at the reunion.
I'm not perfect. Cordell's not perfect either, but that's my husband, and we took an oath in front of everybody, and I'm gonna cook his meals.
It's just so crazy to see how Porsha's life, did a whole flip now. Back then it was bad, and now, it's still pretty bad. Her and Simon, they kicked Fallon out the house. Now Simon is kicking her out the house, and now she has to find her own house. Very poetic, if you will. But so the reason why I couldn't review the last couple of episodes was because if you remember in my last video, I had said that I was going to Beyonce's Cowboy Carter tour. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the tour. The following day, I'll do the review on the latest episode, right? What the quad say from Married to Medicine? No, baby. It was foolish of me to think that I would have any ounce of energy after a Beyonce concert like the following day. So, if anything, blame the cowboy lady for me not uploading anything that specific week, right? And I'm probably going to make a whole separate video of my experience with that. I posted my outfit on Instagram and on the community page here on YouTube, and I just look so good. Like, Beyonce should have just brought me on stage and had me, do the choreography with her and stuff, but whatever. So, regardless, that was a whole different time, and I'll explain that in the video. A couple of days after, I flew out to New Jersey. That's where I'm originally from. That's where my family lives. I live in Los Angeles. So I went out there for my sister's graduation. She has her master's degree. Woohoo! So we were all celebrating, and it was a nice time. And I just felt so bad not updating anybody because I was going to say it originally in that video after the Beyonce concert, like, hey, I won't be doing a review the following week because I'm going to New Jersey. But I didn't film that, obviously. Blame Beyonce. And I didn't want any of you to think that I just left mid-season, like, okay, I'll come back whenever I feel like it, bye. No, because I know what that feels like, because my biological father, he did the same thing to me. He walked out of my life, and I still haven't heard of him, even though I texted him last year, but, I'm trying to break the family cycle. I'm not trying to pass it down to any of you, right? So then that was that, the graduation, Beyonce, I come back home, I'm thinking, okay, I'm ready to film, right? And because my eyes started feeling a little irritated, right? And I'm thinking, okay, it's because of the pollen. Whenever I'm in New Jersey around this time, it usually triggers it, right? But then one of my eyes started becoming extremely red, trigger warning if anybody's squeamish. I go to the doctor actually tells me that I have pink eye, and I've never had that before, but I heard of it. So she gave me eye drops, and I had to stay home for about a week to let it heal, and it was really bad. But obviously now it's much better, everything is good, no irritation, thankfully, and it was just a lot. It was Beyonce, the graduation, pink eye, but guess what? I'm still here. So I am so sorry. Forgive me for being gone and missing in action for a couple of weeks. It was just a lot going on. But, we're here, and I'll discuss everything that happened at the Cowboy Carter tour in a different video. So then we head over to Remy Ma's house, and she's in the bathroom with her suspicious husband. She's telling him about this country club event. And I do use the word event very, very loosely. We'll find out why later on, but, just stick with me. And she's telling him, well, honey, I was thinking that maybe I could throw this big event and, have the girls come for my loungewear. Because apparently now Britt, she has loungewear called Bare Naked. Which, by the way, what is with the trend of having the word naked in your brand? First is Porsha with her hair. What does she call it? Get naked with somebody else's husband or something like that. And now Britt, she calls her loungewear Bare Naked. Like, what happened to being covered up? What happened to being classy? What must we be naked 24/7? We could sell, long sleeve shirts or, turtlenecks or, we don't always have to be naked, right? Psych. Summer's around the corner, so, we're about to be naked 24/7, And it's Pride Month too, woo! Honestly, Britt, a better name for your loungewear would have been something like Bare Bullets by Britt, because of her threats to Kenya. That's more your brand. You act like we forgot your little antics at the beginning of the season, but You know, her husband is just feeding into her delusions, I guess. Then we see Charles and Angela heading to one of their properties that they're trying to renovate. Angela, which by the way, Angela knows how to dress really nicely. I love the way she looks in this crop top look. She lets us know that she's actually $2 million in debt just trying to keep this house together. And I mean, Angela, at this point, just give the house away for a Christmas gift. Or, you know, build a park over it so kids could come and play on it or something. Or make the house into a drive-through restaurant, something. But $2 million? I mean, I know that's nothing to her and Charles, but that's still something, right? So then she starts talking about the issues between her mom and Charles. And, you know, last week we found out that her mom actually passed away. So I feel like it's kind of pointless just discussing this at this point. I just hope that when she did pass away, everything was left peaceful between all three of them and there was no regrets. Like they all said their own, you know, things to each other. So then she tells Charles, well, you know, Britt, she actually invited us to her country club event. And I was wondering, did you wanna go? And Charles, he's just like, look, I'm not a peach holder. I'm not even a friend of. Phaedra's the one coming in as a peach holder, not me. I'm just here to support. I guess I'll go. So then he gives her this little petty hug and I'm like, you know, 12 episodes in and he is still not likable, right? You know, because Britt and Angela, they have their own thing going on. And that's one thing I really wanted to discuss when the episode aired, that her and Britt got into it at Cynthia's event, where she told Britt, you know, you have miles on your mouth. That is a crazy thing to say to somebody. And she said it so quickly. Angela is really good with her words. Britt, not so much. We've seen the material, but you know, Angela, I mean, miles on your mouth, you know, and I know a couple of people, I know a couple of you probably have a couple of vehicles going on there, right? You know, me, I think I'm on my 5th or 6th car. Beep, beep. Miles on your mouth is insane. So we finally get to Britt's country club event. And from this point all the way to the end of the event, I had secondhand embarrassment because it just kept getting worse and worse as it progressed. Or degressed in this case. She looked nice in her outfit though, I'll give her that. So she shows up with her husband, Farnsworth Bentley. They're looking around, I'm looking around. Oh, that's a table. You know, honestly, I feel like there's only one explanation for this whole catastrophe. And I feel like Britt, honestly, she probably hired the same party planner that got into it with RHOA in the earlier seasons to set this whole thing up. Because there's just no reason why, Britt, your whole event should look like something that looks like Giselle Bryant's house. Like, what is this? I'm just looking around and, you know, in the words of Phaedra, all I saw was, you know, dirt and grass. And the camera crew, they pan over to the event, and all you see is, you know, Britt's hopes and dreams just floating away in the distance in the wind. Like, remember when Sheree showed up to Kenya's house and she said in her Mickey Mouse voice, she thinks she's living fabulous, but clearly she's living like the Flintstones. Same thing applies to Britt's event. So everybody shows up dressed nicely, then we get Shamia. I'm already getting a headache. You know, Shamia, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Like, okay, maybe she'll get it right next episode. Okay, not this episode. Maybe she'll get it right next episode. Okay, still not this episode. Okay, maybe the next one, you know, and it still hasn't came, and we're already on the 12th episode. Like, Shamia, you know, I'm convinced that Shamia, she has like a 5-10 second timer in her closet, and she probably presses it to see how many things she could put on within those 10 seconds. Like, okay, on your mark, get set, go. Okay, let me put on this fur jacket, this turtleneck sweater. Let me put on this crop top. Let me put this high heel shoe on my head. Let me put on 2 different earrings. Let me put on 1 lace glove, 1 thick glove. Let me put on a Ugg boot, 1 lace boot. What else? Should I wear panties? No, I'm not gonna wear any panties. What else? Oh, I have 2 seconds. Let me put on this giant necklace. Like, I'm convinced that that's the only way that she gets dressed. Because Shamia, I mean, just because you have all this money, I mean, get a stylist. Is Giselle's old stylist styling you? I'm convinced, because I'm looking at Shamia. She looks like a crossword puzzle with all these letters and words all around her, you know, blazer. I'm like, okay, what does that say? Balenciaga. Oh, okay, Balenciaga. Okay, that's the word going down. Okay, sideways. Let's see. Louis Vuitton. There we go. Okay, what's this word over here? Gucci. Like, I have to constantly be looking at her outfit like, okay, what does this say? Or like, what's the description here? You know, she has on this hat. I'm not sure if she's going to a funeral. And then on top of that, she has 2 wigs on her feet. So everybody goes inside the country club. They're sitting at the dinner table. All the other guests, they start coming in. They start sitting at the tables. Cynthia, she shows up. And Cynthia had just came from the Renaissance concert, I think, with this glittery, metallic dress. She looks pretty. I'm like, wow, okay, Cynthia. So then Britt, she's upset with the planner because according to her, only the cast of the show was supposed to eat while everybody else at the country club was supposed to starve. It's that simple. So she's back there and she's going off and she's like, wait, what? No, what do you mean? No, what do you mean you put menus out on all the tables? No, I clearly said that only, look, it says it right here on my contract, that only the Real Housewives of Atlanta are supposed to eat. Everybody else is supposed to starve. What don't you get? What? I don't give a fuck if Miss Gonzalez is hungry. I don't care about that old bitch. She needs to starve. I don't have enough money for that. No. What? No. Okay, so this is how it's gonna go. Everybody is supposed to get water and 1 pack of peanuts for the entire room. They're supposed to pass it around. And then for the Real Housewives of Atlanta, we all pass around a salad bowl. It's that simple. What don't you get? You know what? You're fired. And I'm like, Britt, on top of this whole thing just being a hot mess, what is this? Now she can't afford food for everybody, only the Real Housewives. And what gets me is the commentary between Shamea, Porsha, and Cynthia. Cynthia was just like, well, I could split my sandwich. And then Porsha was just like,
well, I could eat really fast.
Shamea, well, I could take mine to go. When I tell you all, I was dying of laughter. Like, this is just so not serious, Britt. Imagine being a guest. You're showing up to this fancy country club in your finest couture, right? Your finest Prada, your Louis Vuitton, your Gucci, and everything. And, you're showing up thinking, let me not eat the whole day, so I could get ready to, possibly be on the Real Housewives of Atlanta as an extra, in the background. You're just sitting there patiently waiting for food. Your stomach is in knots, like, you see the waiter, he comes out with a fresh bowl of salad and a steak in another hand. He gives it to the Real Housewives of Atlanta. You're just watching him walk by. Your tongue is just, I can't wait for him to come to my table. It's been like 10 minutes. You start licking your fingers like, that salad that Cynthia's eating, it does look good. It's been like 2 hours at this point. Your stomach is still in knots, like, just for you to not get any food. Next thing you know, you're whispering over to Cynthia like, hey, Cynthia, I'm a big fan. Can we get a picture? But can I also get a piece of your salad? Like, just so embarrassing, Britt. Like, you're having everybody there starve and they're watching them eat. Like, what kind of thing is this? On top of that, she starts giving out these Lunchables, to the whole entire table. And I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? These boxes. So they open it up and, in the infamous words of Phaedra, all I saw was grass and, dirt. Because we see her little loungewear or whatever, and Shamea, she was just like, wow, no tissue paper, no gifts, no nothing. It's just the box with, again, hopeless dreams. And, she starts talking about her, her speech or whatever. They start sitting out. This whole thing is just going down in flames, right? So then Angela, out of nowhere, unprovoked, she just says, by the way, Charles, he doesn't have any side babies. All right, it's time to go. There's no food, there's no drinks, there's no nothing, like there's no side babies. Yeah, I gotta go. Like, what is this? Just a hot mess. And everybody's just looking at her like Porsha in the confessional. She was just like,
you see, this is what happens when people get hungry. They just start talking about side babies.
Clearly that's the rumor, right? I don't believe Angela. Like, Angela, you're full of it, but okay, let's go along with that. So then Britt, she pushes it and she was like, oh yeah, and by the way, I'm not Charles's whore either. I'm like, first of all, where is Farnsworth Bentley? Like, where is he at? So we could get a reaction of him while this whole conversation is happening, right? Like, what is happening here? Because the, what's her name called her a whore? But she never said that you were Charles' whores. Like, where is that coming from? Charles, he was just like, I don't mess with whores. Well, you're missing out, Charles. Ooh, but, that was interesting. Then they start going back and forth. They kind of just squash everything, thankfully. But then Drew, she gets into it with Waffles and Miss Cha-Ching over there, her 2 wigs on her feet. They start going back and forth over nothing, because Drew, she called Shamea Portia's lapdog. And Shamea, she feels some type of way about it. Shamea, You kind of let Porsha just walk all over you. Yet you have all this energy for Drew, but you don't have it for Porsha. Like, I get it that she's your bestie, but you clearly see that she's not treating you the same way that you treat her with respect. So, so then Shamea just starts doing way too much with her little, I'm not listening to somebody who called me a lapdog. What? No, yeah, whatever, bitch. Yeah, no, whatever. Oh, how old are you? Oh, what? In human years or in dog years? And I'm just like, boo, like, two thumbs down, Shamea. Like, doing too much and, for what? All of that went nowhere. This whole thing was a complete disaster. At least everybody looked nice. So then we see Drew going into a business meeting to celebrate that she's a signed artist. She wants to celebrate with her partner, Stevie J. But before that, she needs to clear some questions up because they had told her, oh yeah, there's some text messages that he's passing around saying that you want to sleep with him to get a feature or to get, free studio time. And could you imagine that, sleeping with the hot dog man just so your album could go double plastic on the Billboard charts? If there is any truth to that, Drew, you need to do better. Like, the hot dog man, Dennis? Ugh, at least security could get you backstage, but... so then she calls him and Stevie is just like, look, me and you are business partners. We're just doing strictly music. That's it. I never said anything about sleeping with you. You sleeping with me? Like, what? No, we need to get this together. Like, no, this is strictly just music. That's it. So Drew, I guess she was satisfied with that answer. That was that. She celebrates and, that's that. Drew is a signed artist. So congratulations, Drew. I still have not listened to her album. But I will. Like, I promise you, like, before this year is over, it's on my to-do list, okay? So then we finally get the grand return of the one and only Phaedra Parks. She hasn't been on the show since season 9, so she's back, but obviously she's been on Married to Medicine. She's been on one episode of The Real Housewives of Dubai. She's been on Traders, so, she's been all over Bravo, but she finally got her peach back. So then Porsha, we see her going to her house. They're reuniting. They're screaming. They're laughing. They're so happy to see each other. Is this the first time that they've seen each other in years? Like, do they not hang out outside of the show? I'm guessing not, right? Because of their reactions to each other. And, to me, it is still crazy how Porsha could even be friends with Phaedra, let alone just smile in her face. After everything that happened back then at the reunion, like, she tried to take you down with her and, put all the blame on you. Yeah, Porsha, but then again, Porsha, that up there is kind of missing. So, they sit down, Phaedra, we get a little history lesson from Phaedra's, past on this show. And it is just so crazy to see who Phaedra is now compared to how she was when she first got on the show. She was all, classy. She was a Southern belle, but, now she's like this bad bitch. It's like a whole different person. We see her with Apollo and, that whole situation all the way up to the reunion with Candy and that whole situation. She does say in the confessional she regrets. She doesn't apologize, but she regrets the way she got off the show. And, she says, I think she said, he who doesn't have a peach, or I don't know, some bullshit that Phaedra said. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, you still didn't apologize. You still didn't own up to anything. But at this point, does Candy even want an apology from Phaedra? And to me, it is just beyond hypocritical how they allow Phaedra, first of all, how they allow her to be on the Housewives of Dubai, how they allowed her to be on Traders, Married to Medicine. And after what she did to Candy, that huge allegation that really could have just tainted Candy's career, that could have been it for Candy. Like, we would have never heard of Candy after that whole situation if, people would have believed it. But yet Kenya, and again, I've said it in my review, that Kenya, beyond complete trash, what she did, with the whole Britt situation with the poster, horrible, right? So I completely understand why Kenya got the boot. But you give her the boot, but yet you roll out the red carpet for Phaedra. Like, this is what I don't get. Like, the moral compass for Bravo is just like, okay, what Kenya did was wrong. Give me your peach. Here, Phaedra, you did something wrong too, probably just as bad, but, we need you on the show. We need somebody to fill in her placement. Like, what? At this point, bring Kenya back. They're reminiscing, et cetera, and Phaedra, she goes one by one, giving her description on the entire current cast, and honestly, her jokes kind of, they kind of fell flat for me. Usually she's pretty good, but I feel like she was trying to be funny, or she probably thought like, oh, I really need to bring it. Like, this is my one episode finally coming back to the show. I really need to show the audience that I still have my wit, my humor, but it kind of just, the only joke that I found funny was when she talked about Drew, like, oh, wait, she's into the hot dog man now? Last time I heard she was into tacos. I mean, I thought so too. Wasn't she with, what's her name, Ty? Mimi's girlfriend or whatever they are, whatever, but I could have swore, with Drew, she could do whatever she wants, but, Yeah, she continued going on about Britt being a lady of the night. What's her name? She's into a fetish of small people, and she keeps them in her closet or something like that. I'm like, yeah, this episode needs to end. Like, between Britt's horrible activities or plan, or whatever you want to call that, and Phaedra's lame jokes, we just need to wrap this episode up and just go to the cast trip at this point. So Porsha, she calls, I believe, Waffles, and she was like, oh, I'm here with Phaedra. Can she come on the cast trip? As if she's gonna say no. The producer was right next to Kelly on the line, like, you better say yes. Kelly was like, yeah, of course she could come. Andy Cohen says that she has to come. That's why they're paying her. So that's that. Phaedra is back on the show, and is anybody excited? I mean, it's nice for nostalgia purpose, but nostalgic reasons. But morally, I just feel like if you're gonna bring her back, you need to bring Kenya back. Yeah, what Kenya did was horrible, but two wrongs make a right, or two wrongs make a peach. But that's that. Let me know what you all thought about that horrendous event. And, Phaedra's return. Are you excited? Are you happy to see her? Would you actually like to see Nene back, in the future? Has anybody been watching her YouTube show? I haven't. I cringe. And I can only imagine if she comes on. Anyways, let me know what you all thought about this whole entire episode down in the comments. Bye, everybody. Mwah.